West Interlibrary Loan and Resource Sharing Conference. Today's date is September 18th, 2024. This session is titled, Can We Keep the Fridge? Transforming Non-Traditional Space. Speakers are Robin Weissman and Miriam Wanick. My name is Caitlin, and I'll be the convener for this session. Please let us know if you can't hear or see anything in the shared screen. This session is being recorded with permission from the presenters. We plan to make these recordings available once captions have been added. Expect an email from Whova when the recordings have been posted. We will take questions from the room and from virtual attendees on Whova. Our virtual colleagues should post questions in the Whova Q&A tab, and don't forget to upvote your favorites. After the session, please complete the survey and enter to win our prize contest. If anyone in the room is logged into Whova, please remember not to start the presentation. Oh, sorry, that's me. And now I will turn the session over to our speakers. Thank you.
So first, I want to say thank you for coming. As mentioned, our session is titled, Can We Keep the Fridge? Transforming a Non-Traditional Space. I really wanted to quickly point out we have little fridges on some slides throughout. You're welcome if you want to play a little game, theme of the day, to try to count them. First up, I'm Miriam Wanick. I'm the Assistant Manager of Resource Sharing, and one of my little loves in life are s'mores.
And I am Robin Weissman, and I'm the Director of Resource Sharing at Vanderbilt, and I will still take a selfie with your cat, same as last year when I was presenting, and I said I would do that. I will still do that.
It's one of our favorite things.
What's next one?
So, yeah, Aaron's.
Right on. So just to give you a brief outline of what we're going to go over, we're going to first start off with the old space, a brief history. That's going to start off with from before my time. I did a little bit of like a deep dive into history with my predecessor. Then we're going to talk about getting the news of the move, starting the planning phase, going through the main event, talking about how it's going now, and our plans for the future. So, brief history of our old space. And first, there is a disclaimer up there about some of these photos being fun. When we were in the space, working in it, we didn't think at all about taking the space, just taking photos of the space just for space's sake. Like, you know, when you think about it, who just kind of walks into their office and decides, hey, I'm just going to take a picture of my office just for, you know, whatever. So a lot of the photos that we do have of the office itself was not the focus. There are other things going on. So we're going to be looking at aspects of the photo that's not the photo itself. So as a result, it'll be a little playful, to call back to our keynote speaker. So to start things off, the space before it was an ILL office was used as an electronic classroom. It was around 2014. The ILL office at that point was located on the 6th floor next to the administrative offices. And administration decided that they wanted to renovate their space, which them being in administration they can do. And as a result of that, that means ILL had to be moved elsewhere so they could enlarge their spaces. The head of the management library at the time suggested that the ILL office be moved down to the electronic classroom, which I guess was not being heavily used at that point. So that's kind of how the move happened. It wasn't really designated as an office space as such. Even then, we were just kind of adapting to the electronic classroom. When they first moved in, it was very much a cube farm when everyone was very segmented with walls, and no one could really see each other. And that was how things were when I started. I started in 2018 at Vanderbilt. And not long after I started, we made plans to get new furniture and to kind of redo the space as it was in just the ILL inside the electronic classroom. One of the things that I wanted to do was to kind of get rid of the cube farm feel of it and to open things up a little bit more. One of the issues with being a cube farm is that people would come down and visit us, and no one would know that anyone was even there because walls were up all over the place. So people would be at the door and shout, "Hello, is anyone there?" And someone would have to say, "Oh, yes, I'm here," and kind of like walk around. So we wanted to get rid of that. And what I wanted to get, my position was the assistant manager position that was new at the time. And I wanted to get that desk situated towards oriented towards the door so that when people were coming to visit, administration staff, whoever, there was someone there to kind of be able to speak to them and make it feel a little bit more welcoming. So we wanted it to be a little bit more open, a little bit more service oriented, and also to take advantage of the natural lighting. You can kind of see in the photos that there are lots of windows that are very big, open, and they're very tall. And with everyone being in a cube, it was hard to kind of take advantage of that. So one of the other things of getting rid of the cube feel was to be able to take more advantage of the natural lighting, which hopefully would make everyone create a little bit more of a relaxing vibe, and everyone gets a little bit more vitamin D, which hopefully would help. It also gave us better access to the built-in furniture. You can kind of see in these photos that there are built-in bookshelves, and with everyone being in a kind of cube farm, it was hard for us to take advantage of those walls because everyone just kind of piled things up on their desks or on carts. And there was a lot of space there that we could be using that we weren't. So that was another advantage of taking down those walls, was to be able to create better access to those bookshelves. And also the lack of walls also kind of improved maneuverability with the carts. Uh, um, these are a little bit more photos of kind of the old space after it was redone. Um, you can kind of see a little bit more. We kind of had a little workspace area where we could have tables set up. This is actually a photo of during COVID, where we were staging books when we were kind of shut down to the public. The better access to built-in photos, furniture, or furniture photo. That is a photo from Southeastern Resource Sharing Conference, shameless plug. Um, and that kind of shows how everything was kind of opened up, and you can see everyone was kind of, it was a little bit easier to kind of talk as a group, and be able to interact a little bit more with things more open. And here's some more photos. You can see we have we were able to move large carts and like bins of books around a little bit more. And even for large faculty deliveries, might be one of my favorite photos of myself in the center. That is my office redone, where I was the only one kind of like in raised walls. Just because I would be meeting with staff and people in the office, so having a little bit more privacy helped a little bit. But that being said, the walls only went up so far, and it was still very open. With everything being so open, we were able to get boxes going on carts to like do very large faculty deliveries that are beyond the pay grade of our students. All right, so the news. The news was broken kind of very strategically, that we were being moved. The university librarian and our new called me into his office with what would be our new supervisor, and kind of his first news was, "Hey, you're going to have a new supervisor, and you're going to have a permanent place on the org chart," which is not something that the resource sharing office had since before I started. We'd always kind of been bounced around between, first we were under the Divinity Library, and then we were under Central Library, and for a while we were under Science and Engineering Library. And none of that really fit for us because we serve all the libraries. So we never really had a permanent place in the chart, and that was kind of an ongoing situation that kind of was, in terms of advocacy, was kind of an ongoing concern. So it was great news to hear from the UL that, hey, we are getting a permanent place on the chart. We're going to be in access services with working with the current facilities director. So that was awesome. Really great news. Get to be on the org chart. But the negative was, oh, hey, now you're really happy about that great news. Here's kind of what may not be great news. Hey, you're getting kicked out of your space. Some of the negatives that we had to deal with, we were losing 200 square feet of space. And it's a pretty sizable amount. And it was hard to kind of figure out at that point what that impact would have. Um, the other negative aspect of it was that it was in a restricted area. Previously, our current space at that time was open to the public. So we could say, come visit us anytime, any place. We were open. Faculty members were in the habit of coming and visiting us. Staff members could access us at all times. And we were moving down to a restricted area where there was no easy patron access, not even really any immediately easy staff access, because you had to have card access to go down in an elevator down to the basement level. Um, so access was a little bit cut off in a lot of different ways. We needed to start thinking about clearing our student workers to get access to get into the office. And the big part of it, the major issue was that this wasn't an office either. This was actually literally a kitchen. This was the former staff lounge. It had, hence the name, a few fridges, microwave, like full kitchen space. This was not designed in any way, shape, or form to be an office. So there was a lot of work done that needed to be done in terms of transforming it into a space that we could work in that was, office worthy, but also library worthy and able for a resource sharing office to work. There were positives to that, though. Being down kind of in that lower level, we were right across the hallway from the mailroom, which is great for us. I'm sure you all know, resource sharing people, we do a lot of mailing. So having that improved access to the mailroom was really helpful. We don't know the exact number, but we've always been told that about 90% of the mailing out of all the libraries comes out of our office. So there was a big benefit for both mailroom staff and our staff to be in such close quarters together. We were also going to get, since it was a former lounge, we got our own private bathroom, which is always nice. So we really like that. And hence the name, we got a fridge, and we also got a dishwasher and a microwave. And so we were really excited about that. So a little bit more about the planning phase. We were given no additional budget to plan the move. We were reliant on whatever money was available in the facilities director's budget. So that was kind of a negative, particularly given the extra work that we would needed to be invested into the project to kind of make it workable. The good news was our new supervisor was the facilities director. So we had an in there to be able to really talk to him and advocate and nag him for, the funds that we needed to accomplish our goals. We started out kind of thinking about our needs in terms of and prioritizing those. The big priority was getting the lounge like wired up electronically to be not just an office, but also like a heavy use office. It's not just that we needed to plug into the internet. We also need to get data ports set up for all our scanners, for our microfilm reader. We had multiple workstations, and the lounge was not really wired for that. Also, we needed more electrical outlets. The lighting needed to be worked on. So that was priority number one. Secondary needs were kind of filling in holes from losing the physical walls in the old space and adjusting for losing the 200 square feet. There was also the kind of third part was the decorative and anything that would kind of make a permanent change to the room. We wanted to do that, but also didn't that kind of stuff could kind of be tabled because we wanted to make sure that we were settled in before we started making any kind of big changes, like starting to drill in the walls or anything like that, anything that would kind of make serious changes, and to make sure that there wasn't another way we could compensate. Like, hey, maybe we can put in bookshelves and that will compensate for that. My problem is that I have no experience with redesigning from scratch. I was working with the facilities director who has been doing this for decades. So he was kind of using very technical terms and being like, where do you want this or that, and rewiring and everything. It was very overwhelming. I asked if there were any blueprints or anything because we had used that for the furniture redesign up on the our old space, and there really weren't any blueprints that he could provide, but he did kind of jerry rig some from scratch. So we had a meeting, and we kind of sat down with with facilities director, and we were kind of going over this, and he kind of gave me the what he designed and said, go to work with that. And I kind of sat down with Miriam and was kind of like, I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed because I don't have any experience with this. Like, I live in studio apartments. Like, I don't even like redesign my own apartment or living space. So kind of working with that is kind of overwhelming. So we need a space nerd, someone who is really, really into redesigning and all that. And who is a big space nerd?
Hi, I'm a space nerd. So one of my biggest, loveliest pastimes, things I enjoy, is looking at floor plans. Like, it's one of my favorite things in all the world. Like, I look at house and apartment floor plans and just look at it and go, that's a bad floor plan. Who would want to live in that? Um, so it's just something I do for fun. So when I got heard that we were moving, yeah, those negatives you saw on the previous slide, that was me. I was like, what in the world? What Robin didn't tell you is that just before all of this, we were just told had just been kicked out of our office for new rugs. And then 3 months later, they were telling us we were being kicked out of the office altogether. And we were like, why couldn't you have told us this 3 months ago? And then we only would have had to do all this moving of furniture once. But yeah. I was also on vacation when we got the news. It was a moment for me. It was a moment. But I'm a space nerd. So this floor plan that you see here, the first one came, Robin got it, and then she handed it to me and I said, so what are the dimensions? It's like, this is the floor plan I was given. It's like, give me measurements. So, but also I started doing the questions of, so what do we need? What do we want? What would be nice to have? So this slide here, this initial floor plan that I got, was me just going through and asking those questions of what do we want, need, what do we want, and what would be nice to have. So, the upper corner here across from the door, that was a larger lending section because we're a net lender, because our lending coordinator had a very small section. I was like, you know what? You could use a bigger lending section. I'm over there in the back by the bathroom. I'm like, I'm just the assistant manager. I deal mostly with students and helping with scanning. I don't need a big section. My overgrown section is really to help with the students and stuff. Robin gets to keep all of her spaces. She didn't want to get smaller. It would have been nice to give her bigger, but that was not an option. So that was the initial plan. What do we got to work with? We don't have measurements really. It just said like each box was 1 foot. That's not really helpful. So, moving on from those questions, really asking those questions are, what do we need is really asking the question of are spaces large enough to do our jobs and the efficiency of workflow? What do we want? What do we need? What do we want? The ability to store department supplies in office and spaces that can adapt to seasonal needs. Those of us who are in academic libraries all know, seasonally speaking, those end of semester, midterms, all those borrow returns coming in from students, all those lending returns coming in. What normally you have the space for when all that stuff comes in, you could have hundreds of items sitting in your office and you need to be able to expand your space to be able to handle all of that without things being on the floor, tripping hazards and stuff like that. So we need to be able to handle those seasonal flows. And what would be nice to have? Dimmable lights. And in our case, dimmable lights, not just for the whole space because that already existed. We were like, maybe dimmable lights split in half in the office, one side full light, one half where the scanners are different. Shelving, maybe update the paint because it's kind of a weird mint green and gray. So there's stuff like that. Then once we have those questions filled into the room, we start measuring. So I started going, I went back to our facilities manager, our new boss, and I said, "So, what's the measurements of everything?" No, really. What are the measurements of everything? So they brought out the digital measuring tools and came back with the actual measurement of every wall, like down to the inch. And they gave that to me in writing. And then I started inputting that into places. And then I started measuring every existing space. So that included there's a pre-existing table in the middle of the room where the kitchen is. And I went down and I measured the length of that. I went and measured maybe some tables that maybe could stay, maybe not. It's like, okay, how tall are those? How long are those? And then I measured every single table and desk in our old office, in our what was our current office. Can we keep these? And then I also measured the depth and height of every piece of machinery coming with us. Now, you wouldn't think about that. We have 2 book eye scanners. And if you want to move those things are very deep and wide. And if you want to rearrange things, you need to make sure that whatever you put it on is deep enough. My original plan for what I was going to put that on wasn't deep enough. Didn't have the right depth. So I actually had to go find another table in the office. Remember, no budget to buy new stuff. To find another table to repurpose it. And then we ended up having to take the wheels of legs from another table to put it on that so it was on wheels to move around the office. So really measure, measure, and measure. This is not our final floor plan because once we got down there and started moving things around, we were like, we're not going to get that. And we're not going to get that. But we found something better. But measuring and measuring and measuring. And I put sticky notes on every table with who it currently existed, where it's going, and what its measurements are. So that I knew what it was, so that if somebody had to go and grab it later, if I wasn't there, they knew exactly what item that was. It's like moving house, but a little bit more complicated because it's not in boxes. It's not saying this box goes in this room, everything's going in the room. I don't think we left a single table up in that room. The one table I think we thought we were going to leave, we ended up swiping anyways. Yeah. There's some funny, humorous moments that happened with that table. But yeah.
There's a bookcase as well. In terms of building team cohesiveness and play, I would recommend engaging in crime with your set. Furniture, which is
Oh yes, there was that too. There was like, this bookcase is really nice, and it's in an office that no one's currently using. Is this owned by anyone? Could we use this? Yeah, we're just gonna pick this up and put it in a room while we're waiting because we had, about 2.5, 3 months before the move. And I'm like, yeah. But I mean, because we were losing a room with all these built-in bookcases that we were using, we didn't have storage going in. Everything you see on this plan right here, those are bookcases and storage spots that was square footage we were losing for items in our original office that we had to find new. So as we kept moving along, we had to find new places. So on that note, I'm going to move along to Rabbit.
all right. So, fun little side story about kind of the main event of the move. The move happened right after the American Library Association conference in Chicago last year. And I remember this because right before I attended that conference and I left, the last question I asked facilities director was, what's the latest estimate on the move? And he said, oh, I haven't even submitted the PO. It's going to be 4 to 6 weeks at least. So I said, all right, perfect. I'm going to go enjoy this conference. Get done with the conference. I'm going through security at O'Hare Airport, going back, and I get a text message literally as I'm about to start putting my stuff, on the conveyor belt. I'm sorry, I missed an email. The movers are coming tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Wow. So my first response was, we are in no way, shape, or form ready. We still had some things packed up in boxes from the carpet situation, but all the big stuff, we were just not ready at all. Facilities director was really encouraging. He said, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. The movers will be there at 8:30. They have all the information. Tristan is like the building operations manager. He'll be there to help you. So don't worry about it. The time I got that text message was after 5 p.m., but before 6 p.m. So Miriam was still in the office. No one else on staff was. So I had to start emergency texting all the rest of the staff saying like, hey, sorry, I know this is really terrible news, but 8:30 a.m. tomorrow, we got to start moving. So there you have right there. That was our lending coordinator at the time, Bailey, who was kind of sitting and chilling out. She got herself set up on a book cart while her desk was like spur of the moment being taken apart. Once we got on site the next morning, Tristan contacted me and said, there was another move going on at the same time. Our special collections department was being moved to another building on campus. And Tristan kind of touched base and said, I'm sorry, I won't be available to help. I have to work on the special collections move. So we kind of lost our outside help there. Then the mover showed up. There were supposed to be 2 movers. One of them was injured and couldn't come in. And the mover, he had like basic blueprints that it turned out were incorrect, but he had no instructions. So he came in and he pretty much asked us, hey, what do you guys want me to do? And I literally said to him, I was hoping you could help us out with that. We don't really know how to do this. So it was very much kind of winging it, flying by the seat of our pants, making it work, to quote Tim Gunn from Project Runway. So these are some photos from the main event as things are being slowly but surely taken apart. Again, we were pretty much winging it, just thinking, what can we do now? Mover has to take apart the large furniture. We can pack up boxes and things and bins. So we tried to do what we can in stages. We put chairs off to the side, and this was kind of like the work in progress. Some more of that as things are progressing and moving along. I'm going to go a little bit fast for time's sake. And we start seeing a little bit, these are the picture on the right is a quick view of the new space before we started moving in. And there we are as it's starting to come together. You can see Miriam with the mover. Miriam was really great with the blueprints, kind of directing the mover, which turned out to be really, really important as the mover was not fully in the loop with what was going on. And now I turn it over to Miriam.
So that comment about Robin commented about a couple of departments moving around and my comment about measuring everything. So these are a couple of bookcases that I found for our space. This white one here, you'll see in a moment. It was actually from what is now the Digital Lab, but formerly Government Publications, and is now our faculty delivery shelving. And then the wooden ones over here are images where I actually took the measuring tape to see if it was tall enough and wide enough to fit into what is now where we stage our scanning shelves. So I wanted to point out that, yeah, it was like going, measuring, seeing if it was big enough, tall enough, could handle what we were asking of it. So how's it going? This is our space now. You would never have known, and we've actually had some people comment that they didn't even know this was previously the staff lounge. You walk into it and it looks like an amazing office. It has an amazing flow. to it. What you don't see in this picture immediately to your left is a cart for books going back up to our Central and Divinity Library. The middle cart is incoming borrowing, and then we have a lending returns. So everything you guys ship back to us cart, and it has room enough for overflow. This beige cart that you see here is our outgoing cart. So it's all the books are right there by the door so that it can go straight over to the mail room or really easy flow right in and out. And then we have there's that faculty delivery bookcase over there in the back corner by the one window that does not open. Has a great view of squirrel theater. It does say squirrel enclosure. We put a little label on it. It's a lot of fun to watch them. Vanderbilt has a thing for squirrels, just as a note. If you guys, well, you'll see our thank you slips in a moment. And my office is back there in the corner. This picture was taken with me at my desk. Okay. And our scanners are way, way back there in the corner. We have the dual dimmers. So here's a little view of what we do in this office. And taking advantage of the fact that a lot of our tables are on wheels, so we can move things around and use the space efficiently. So if we have a meeting and we want to have snacks at the meeting, we can bring chairs around and sit around a table and have a meeting. Also, when we have an event, this was actually when our lending coordinator, Bailey, was leaving, and we could use that, clear off the space for where our students work and have a buffet. We are all about food in our office. We love food. And there's that fridge we got to keep. There were two previously, so we did have to give up one, but we got to keep one. And so going back to those questions initially about things that you ask when you move into a space. What do we need? Well, space is large enough to do our jobs and efficiently and have efficient workflow. Did we get that? Yes, we did. In fact, I would say we improved our workflow around the office. Carts move a lot more easier around, partly because we no longer have to deal with carpet. What do we want? The ability to store department supplies in office and spaces can adapt to seasonal needs. Yep. We have places to store extra book carts in the back storage room and a Zoom room. So we can hide those away, and when we need more space for those overflow, we can bring those carts out and use them. What would be nice to have? Dimmable lights. Yes. We have those split dimmable lights, which is really nice when we have those extra shiny paper art books that the light just wants to bounce off of. We can dim that half of the room. I'm seeing nodding heads in the room, so that we can really modify the lighting in the room for when we need that instead of just turning the lights off. Also really nice when I have a migraine. Shelves, like built-in shelving, we aren't there yet. That's like permanent changes. Same thing with updated paint. Maybe there's a lot of things that we would love to have someday. And then I'm gonna hand this off to Robin.
Yeah, I just took these photos about a week or two ago. This is what it took a year for the new space to kind of or the old space to get redesigned. This is our old office, what it looks like now. The photo on the left was a welcome back pizza party that they opened up for all the library staff. You can't really see it on the photo, but all our shelves are still labeled ILL style. We had all our shelves color coded for like red at the top. That's rapid. That needs to go right away versus 1 day, 2 day. And it was orange, yellow, like rainbow. And that is still up as I guess kind of a little memorial to what the office used to be. And the photo on the right is a picture of an extended leadership meeting that we had. So it's a little bit of the room, I guess, is kind of like a mullet. There's a little bit of party and there's a little bit of business as well going on. And Taylor, if you look really closely, Melissa Mallon is also in the photo, like on the extended leadership side. So that's fun. All right, a little quick bit on future projects. Now that we've been settled in for a year, we think it's about time to start doing a little bit of drilling and actually doing some substantial improvements that actually spends money. The fiscal year has turned over, so we know these projects are going on, so hopefully we should be able to make those adjustments. We want to do a thank you wall. We did have one up in the old space, but it was kind of haphazard. Um, Shout out to UC Berkeley. They did a video about a year or two ago about their thank you slip wall. And it got brought to our attention because they showed our Vanderbilt thank you slips. And we thought that was also a really great idea that they made that wall. So we're going to try and copy them and make one ourselves. And we'd also like to get a little bit more art going on in the office. You could maybe have seen in the old photos, I have a Johnny Mnemonic poster because that's a cinematic masterpiece and everyone should see the movie Johnny Mnemonic. And that is kind of hanging up in the office, but that's the only real artwork that we kind of have hanging up. So we'd like to update things and make things a little bit more fun and a little bit more reflective of our style. So that's kind of a future project as well. And I think that's about it from us. If you don't know TJC, maybe you know our thank you slips. These are a small selection. Our thank you slips are all made by a former student employee named Ray, who is clearly an amazing artist. Most of them involve squirrels because that's kind of the unofficial mascot of Vanderbilt. It's the Commodore, but that's kind of lame. So we like the squirrel better. If you have really good eyes, you can find the fridge on this slide because there is, in fact, a fridge. So hopefully you can see that. And all right, open for questions.
Is there anyone in the room that has questions?
That's all right. I can do it.
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you. We seem to have the opposite problem of you. We have a gigantic space. I worked there about 10 years ago, and it's pretty amazing to see the legacy of everyone that's worked there and how it gets imbued within the space. But it's also a testament to, regardless of whether you change or not, sort of the work that we do and the connections that we have they become externalized. And it's cool to see how you were able to accomplish that. But yeah, it's cool to see this change manifest over such a quick amount of time. But now that you've sort of starting to find your bearings, what are some things that you've noticed that this new the change or the new space has brought to you, or how has it changed certain factors of what you do, or maybe relationships with your students?
I think it's kind of, from my perspective, it's brought us together a little bit more in terms of having to kind of work on the project together. And we've all kind of had to adjust to each other a little bit more and adjust to the new space, and kind of working through the challenges has kind of brought us together, I think, a little bit more. Miriam's kind of looking a little skeptical though. So we'll see what Miriam has to say.
I would say I would say actually one of the biggest challenges that, and I think we're still working on, is like connection with uh faculty and users in this space. Is that because we lost that like public facing part of ourselves? We've had a couple of faculty who would love to interact with us more, who used to like just drop in on us, and now they don't. Like they have to like arrange a time to come see us if they want to come see us, or they go to central circulation, say, hey, I want to see ILL, and we get like a phone call or a Teams message and say, hey, so a faculty member's here to see you, and we have to come on up and leave our space.
I'm going to jump onto that because that's a good point. We actually had a situation with a faculty member who found out we were moving and was very distressed by it and that he wouldn't have access. And he complained to first, he was with the Divinity School of Divinity. So he spoke to the Divinity Library director. Then he elevated it to there was 2 days after he found out, there was a Divinity Library faculty meeting, and he elevated it and brought it up in the faculty meeting. So then that brings it to the Divinity Dean's attention. So then it has to go to the university librarian, our boss, so that it got brought to his attention. So then that kind of escalated the situation in ways that was kind of out of our hands at that point. We're being moved. This is the fact. Unfortunately, he won't have access. The plan was made that he was given card access. So he is able to access our office and he can swipe himself down. That was kind of the agreement that was made with the UL. And also he can set up for all his graduate assistants to come down at will. But Miriam is right. That kind of, for the office, we kind of were able to work together cohesively. But in terms of outreach to staff and even kind of interacting with the other libraries across campus, kind of it was difficult to adjust to, and it's still kind of something we're working through, but we're getting there.
Is there any more in-person questions? If not, I have some online ones. Okay, so we'll go to the online questions. Have you ever used the dishwasher? I'm going to say, yeah.
So I personally have not. It's pretty much Kathy, who is one of our borrowing / mailroom person. She usually takes on the dishwasher responsibility. It's very strange how things have kind of like naturally worked out. It's kind of like when you're like in college with your roommates in the office, like sometimes you just toss things in the sink, and then after a few days, Kathy will go through and then just kind of do a run of the dishwashing and stuff. So
To be fair, when we first moved in, it turned out we had so much electrical stuff in the office that we blew the breaker that the dishwasher was connected to. So they actually had to repair the breaker and fix things. And yeah, so there was a few months where we didn't have the dishwasher. It was just a fancy drying rack. But yeah, we have used it.
Great, thank you. So there's one more question for the Q&A. How many people are on your permanent staff, and how many student assistants do you typically have?
that is a great and tricky question to answer. Right now in the resource sharing department, there's me and Miriam, and there's our borrowing coordinator, Rachel. We work very heavily with Kathy's kind of like mailroom and RSS, kind of like divided in half. Yeah. We have annex staff that come in on site and do work for us 1 day a week. So we have kind of a hodgepodge of people coming in and out. There's 3 full-time people, but then also other people from other departments coming in and working with us. And for student assistants, I would say about 6 as of Monday, right on. We're a little behind in hiring for the semester. So I would say usually it's about 10 or so. And also we're doing a little bit of cross training with our circulation department to try to kind of use our students a little bit more ambidextrously is the word I like to use, where the circulation students, depending on the ebb and flow of workflow, they might come down and help us out. We might go have students go up and help them out. So kind of a tricky answer to the question.
Okay, that was all of our questions. So thank you for attending the session. Please complete the post session survey in Whova, which you can access through the QR code and the link. And Will Planning Committee thanks you for your feedback. And if you want to continue the conversation, you can use the chat in the session or use the Whova community section. And thank you again to our presenters and everyone here.